Well, a warm welcome, everybody, joining us this afternoon here. Once again, round 5 in the Euroformula Open Championship. And it brings us to Austria. The Red Bull Ring. Once again, here the roar of engines here in the GT Sport category of Euroformula. Single-seater racing about to get underway. A fantastic track. 20 laps, 30 minutes max. That is certainly what's going to be out in front of us here. Air temperature 25 degrees. It advanced considerably since qualifying this morning. And this time around, it's going to be the charge of that of Noel Leon, who looks to continue his championship charge this season, and on pole once again. Another consecutive pole going to the Mexican, who's going to look to try and add to that as well next time around. And of course, this being his 4th consecutive pole, of course, taking the first one in Spa, the next one in Hungaroring, and then Paul Ricard to boot. But he's got some new faces joining him as well in the sharp end. Joshua Dufek moving across after his stint in Formula 3 recently. Of course, taking part in Monza's, well, raced 2 races in that championship. And Charlie Wirtz also joining us from the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. And those 2 drivers continuing with us until the end of the season. Raw talents that are certainly hot tips for the world of Formula 3. And Euroformula will continue to strive to develop new drivers for the future that you will see, certainly like the likes of Liam Lawson, who has recently got his start in Formula 1. And there is Francesco Simonazzi. You'll have fond memories of this particular circuit. Remember, he took his first win in Euroformula this time last year in race 3, and he's going to look to try and do the same again, albeit it's going to be a tough task because he's starting from the back. My name is, of course, George Morgan, your commentator, and alongside me, as always, it's Chris Stevens. Chris, how are you, sir?
Yeah, Grant, looking forward to seeing how this plays out with 2 new drivers on the grid and starting right up at the sharp end of the field behind Noel Leon. Joshua Dufek on the front row of the grid. Charlie Wirtz lining up 3rd on the grid for this one as well. And you alluded to the temperature changes. It was a cool, crisp track temperature of 16 degrees when we qualified this morning at just gone 8:30 local time. It is now approaching 2 o'clock local time, where the track temperature is now 40 degrees Celsius, and that is quite the change compared to this morning. How is that going to affect things in this first Euroformula Open race of the season? This grid decided by the results of qualifying. We then have a top 6 reverse grid race tomorrow. That's based off the results from this race, and another top 6 reverse grid race tomorrow, but that is based off the results of qualifying. So for that one, it will be Jakob Bergmeister, the rookie, on pole. But he'll have to wait till tomorrow afternoon for that one. In the meantime, it is Noel Leon for the 4th consecutive time starting race 1 from pole position, with Joshua Dufek making his debut in the championship alongside him. And yeah, coming over from F3, as you mentioned, but also from a Formula Regional campaign, as is Charlie Wirtz. Charlie Wirtz, what staggers me is he's still only in his 2nd season of kart racing, having pretty much debuted in F4 UAE last year, winning that championship and also winning the Formula Regional Oceania Championship this year as well, and now looking to rise up the order and potentially find his way onto the FIA F3 grid for next year.
Yeah, Charlie Wirtz, certainly a very healthy repertoire, certainly when it comes to winning championships. 2021, he entered Italian F4, also did Porsche Sprint Challenge GT4 and F4 UAE that year. He was a race winner for the first time in that championship, then taking the F4 UAE Championship in 2022. Took part in ADAC and Italian F4, and then, of course, Spanish F4, and also competed in the FIA Motorsport Games too. Keaton Shields also rejoins us, and is certainly someone who is definitely on the improving stratosphere. And some of his results lately have been absolutely compelling, obviously securing some stellar race victories in his own right. Bryce Aaron is another one who is currently hot on the heels of Noel Leon. Obviously, the championship fight is still very much underway. And you can certainly imagine that Bryce Aaron will look to try and launch his charge that little bit closer. 17 points is all that separates them between Ps1 and Ps2. There's Jakob Bergmeister, also on the improvement and is working hard to develop his own racecraft too. And then we have the Gold Cup drivers there, of course, Vladimir Netashil from Czechia, representing for Effective Racing Team. And he's going to look to try and launch a charge in his own right. Paolo Brajnik is going to be on his tail too. There he is, and looks set to get underway here at Paul Ricard, the Serbian. And you wouldn't count him out of getting past that of Netschel this time around. I'm sure there'll be some side-by-side between them. And then at the tail end of the field, the driver that sort of came unstuck through qualifying, too many off-tracks led to him being unable to field a valid lap right through the end. The stewards saying no, they weren't too happy with the track limit violations. And now Simonazzi has a lot of work to do, Chris.
He certainly does from the back of the grid. Also been on the F3 grid on the Formula One support bill while we've been on the summer break. Now, car number 23, that's Bryce Aaron. Has been asked to check his transponder, but here's what happened last time out.
Yeah, last time out, of course, we went racing at Paul Ricard. Simonazzi got a good start. Bryce Aaron, I think, had a tricky one, though, however, making his way down towards turn one. Noel Leone was challenged heading in towards the first sector, but they came together, didn't they? And unfortunate suspension damage from Simonazzi. And Noel Leone, of course, suffering the same fate, too. There was a huge, huge fight, though, brewing throughout the entire field. Kian Shields coming together as well with Bryce Aaron as they met heading through the very attractive section. Juju Noda would go on to take her first race win this season as well, and a first win for a female racing driver in Euroformula. We then got underway in race two, and tell you what, it all came together again, and another false start led to an issue, but we then saw, of course, Vladislav Ryabov take the lead initially at the very start here at Paul Ricard. Simonazzi then dropped back through the field, but a huge error from Ryabov meant that he then cruised on the outside of the track and lost positions as a coincidence. Bryce Aaron made his way through the final corner, however, and in his battle to take the championship fight to Noel Leone would cross the line and take victory in race two at Paul Ricard. Race three would then get underway. Juju Noda would be on the front row of the grid, and she tried to battle against that of Kian Shields heading down towards turn one. She succeeded in getting the nose in front as well, but heading in towards turn one, Kian Shields just held the line heading through turns one and turns two and consolidated his position at the front. Noel Leone would then try and battle his way past Juju Noda. The Japanese driver had to cut off the escape, and Noel Leone managed to consolidate that positioning. But certainly entering the final corner, Kian Shields would celebrate because he would go on to take victory this time in the circuit in the south of France. And this is what it's done to the Drivers' Championship. Noel Leone ahead, 202 points, 18 points the gap now between himself and Bryce Aaron, 184 for him. Kian Shields in third with Francesco Simonazzi still in fourth. Juju Noda in fifth with Jakob Bergmeister sixth. Josh Mason in seventh. Tim Tramnitz down in eighth. The spectators, though, in waiting as we look to get set here for race one, Chris. And naturally, with the sun beaming down, let's take you through the starting grid. Noel Leone starts on pole with Joshua Dufek joining him on the front row. Charlie Wirtz in row two, starting third, with Kian Shields alongside him in fourth. P5, that would go to Bryce Aaron with Jakob Bergmeister alongside him. Vladimir Netschel in seventh with fellow Gold Cup trophy driver Paolo Brajnik in eighth. And Francesco Simonazzi starting from the back after having his laps confirmed. Well, he wasn't allowed to put any further laps on the board, aside from the ones he'd already completed prior to receiving the penalty from the stewards. But the revving of the engines, Chris, tells us that we're about to get underway. Formation lap soon to be upon us. What are your thoughts?
Well, Noel Leone obviously is looking pretty good out at the front of the field. But I would say Joshua Dufek has got a real chance of challenging Noel Leone, particularly in the early stages. We're told to expect overtaking to be a little challenging around here, but could well be a good fight between Dufek and Leone. And we'll see how Charlie Wirtz gets on in his first start as well. Of course, got to keep an eye on Bryce Aaron. He took 30 points out of Noel Leone's championship lead last time out in Paul Ricard, but he lines up fifth for this one. Let's see what he can do from there.
Yeah. Hasn't finished second at all this season as Bryce Aaron, but has taken victory 3 times, equaling that of Noel Leone up to now, and 2 third places here at this point. Fastest lap, though, as well, one going to him with 6 at Noel Leone's, certainly in Noel Leone's hands at this stage. Yeah,
so in Paul Ricard, Bryce Aaron equalled the number of wins that Noel Leone has, but he's still coming up shy on the number of podiums. That's what's making the difference in terms of the championship points at the moment.
Yeah, 1 P3 certainly extra for Noel Leone and 2 second places for the Mexican, which has led to the points gap that is certainly on the table right now. Pole position 3 for Noel Leone, that became 4 after this morning. And Bryce Aaron himself with 1 to his name. But now we've got 2 additional drivers joining the fray, and they'll be with us right to the end of the season. Joshua Dufek and Charlie Wirtz, looking to be contenders in Formula 3 next season and looking to make a good account of themselves here in the Dallara 320 chassis that many of the drivers that compete in this championship know and love. And it certainly does offer stellar racing when they run wheel to wheel. And I'm sure Charlie Wirtz and that of Joshua Dufek are going to look forward to, you know, showing what this car, well, show themselves what this car can really do. And we'll wait and see whether they can bring that to the table. But in terms of Noleon, start as you mean to go on. Very important they can hold the lead here, Chris.
Yes, absolutely, particularly with that long run up the hill towards the braking zone of turn 3, and then another long run towards another big braking zone at turn 4. It's going to be imperative that Noleon stays ahead. I think he'll be quite comfortable after that. But Noleon, the young Mexican, leads him around the last couple of corners at the end of this formation lap. You can spot Dufek a little bit better. He's got the red tips on his front wings and rear wing there, and Charlie Wirtz with completely different livery to his fellow Motorpark Run cars, which is very good news for us. He's very easy to spot with the bronze livery on his car.
Yeah, same livery that he donned in Freca this season. Charlie Wirtz, of course, as we said, we alluded to his credentials. Joshua Dufek, similarly impressive, 7 podiums, finishing P4 in the Spanish F4 Championship in 2020. Italian F4 taking a victory in 5 podiums in 2021. ADAC F4 taking 4 podiums there too, as we await the cars now to line up onto the grid. He would take 3 podiums in Freca last season, took 2 podiums this season and a pole, and 2 races in FIA Formula 3. And now he's here in the Euroformula Open Championship to maybe add some wins to his repertoire in this series as well. The green flag now being waved by the marshal in behind as we await the lights to go red here at Paul Ricard. First light, second light, third light, fourth light, and the 5th light. And it's pedal to the metal, and it is go, 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 and a stellar start, getting away well. Noleon careers away and holds the lead. Joshua Dufek had a very sluggish getaway, and Charlie Wirtz has managed to certainly harness that too. I think so. Well, in fact, looking further down, had a slow getaway himself as well. So the 2 newcomers dropping to the tail end of the field. Simonazzi has been gifted at least 2 places. He's got 3 already. He's going to go for 4 as they come up now through towards Remus. Cutting across now is Netteshill. Dances in front of them here as well. Coming through is Joshua Dufek, trying to gain back the places that he lost. Simonazzi getting squeezed out as Netteshill tries to defend his place. A very busy start, Chris Stevens.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's, Brajnik getting up on the inside there as well into 4th place. Wirtz is at the back of this train, and let the Motorpark car going wide there. Simonazzi on the inside. Don't make a mistake now, Francesco. You've already survived the opening chaos. Don't go and lose your front wing now. I mean, this is a dream for Noleon, of course. It's just absolutely clear. Kian Shields is the one who's come out in 2nd place. But yeah, really difficult start for a few drivers towards the back of the grid.
Yeah, it certainly is. Bryce Aaron as well, having probably the most difficult start of all. Sees himself at the very back now. So there was a few drivers, I think, that must have just misjudged the getaway, or maybe even just stalled it briefly. Charlie Wirtz, I thought he had a decent start, but ended up getting caught up, I think, in behind. And unfortunately for him, saw himself sink down to the rear of the field. Bryce Aaron now, hot on the heels of Vladimir Netteshill. Probably need to make the move now desperately as he comes up through towards turn 1. Doesn't want to leave too much time in between him and Charlie Wirtz, or that of Paolo Brajnik, or anyone else here at this point, as they now head up through towards turn 1 again to start their 2nd lap of proceedings. As we now see Simonazzi sort of gaining here on Paolo Brajnik, leading up towards turn 3. He's going to look down the inside now, and certainly the BBM racing car looking to try and hunt the Tiger Line. Gets through now past Brajnik, and now he's up smoothly into P4.
So here's a replay of the start, and yeah, a lot of the guys just don't get. So Bergmeister doesn't get away.
Wirtz didn't
either, and then there's one of the other. It's Bryce Aaron who didn't get away. So this is one of the last sort of cars quite high up the single-seater ladder, where they still use a foot clutch rather than the hand-operated ones. It's not really until you get to FIA F3 on the Formula 1 support bill where you get such luxuries, and they are quite difficult to get off the line, and we have seen it catch out a number of drivers so far this season. But yeah, that was difficult stuff, and good avoidance from everyone as we see Wirtz trying to get up on the inside here of Brajnik, who ends up going wide, and that becomes a much easier move for Wirtz into the final corner. And it looks like Bryce Aaron going to try and take full advantage of that as well up on the inside. That'll be 6th place for the American driver.
Yeah, he's got his nose in front now of certainly the car alongside him now. That, of course, being belonging to that of Paolo Brajnik, and now he sees himself behind Bryce Aaron now. Simonazzi, who after starting from the tail end of the field after the stewards issued him with that essentially a penalty in the qualifying this morning, and now sees himself where he is right now. Still an improvement. Leon has just posted the fastest lap of the race, a 1:25.289. The cars then make their way down through towards Slosh Gold at turn 4. Now heading out through towards turn 5. There's Leon now, and he's got quite a healthy gap between himself and Cian Shields at this point. And Joshua Dufek, who's recovered now into 3rd place. Simonazzi down in 4th. Charlie Wirtz now up into 5th after the tricky start that he had as well. Bergmeister still at the root of the field, and needs to try and get himself past Brajnik and Netteschill.
Yeah, speaking of the difficult starts, I mean, good avoidance by everyone there to not run into the back or have any kind of problems while there are some cars struggling to get away. Of course, we have seen what can happen in those sorts of incidents, not least at Spa when we had Gerard G, rookie driver, on pole position and ended up being clouted into the back of when he didn't get away from reverse grid pole.
Well, that's right, absolutely. Leon now out of turn 1. Shields there, you can see, trying to get closer and closer. 1.3 seconds now between the pair, and quite a healthy gap between them and Dufek too.
Bryce Aaron's had another adventure because he's just dropped 2 places, I believe. Actually, that might just be a transponder issue because he's back now in 6th place, and he was being told to check his transponder on the grid. So I think he's just got a dodgy ticker there.
Yeah, I think just a little bit of a glitch in the system. So now seeing the cars come down towards Slosh Gold now. Race 1, of course, this weekend. We've got 3 to bring you in total. So 2 more after these, and you'll have tomorrow to bring you as well with the reverse grid scenarios. And we've got only a mere 4 rounds to go, including this one, as we go to 2 tracks in Italy, Monza being the next one, and then Mugello and Barcelona. And that is where well, hopefully the title will be decided as well, as we now see the cars make their way through. There's Paolo Brajnik now heading through the next left of Roche and Wirth curve, double lefts to take. And currently, at this point, ahead of fellow Gold Cup trophy driver Vladimir Netteschill. As they head now in towards the final sector. The gap's starting to formulate a little bit now. Still 1.3 between Shields and Leo. Near 2 seconds now with Dufek to Shields there in 3rd place. Simonazzi, who has really done well off that getaway. I think he'd be quite happy with 4th after the start, to be honest, Chris.
Yes, he has equally good first laps in the remaining 2 races, because he'll have to start last for all of them after too many track limit excursions in qualifying. Meant that he wasn't allowed to, or his best lap time wouldn't count regardless of what happened on the lap, and it just so happened at that point he hadn't actually put in a competitive lap time at all. And speaking of it, he's just been given a track limits warning at turn 10, so let's hope it's not a repeat of what we were seeing earlier.
Yeah, Bryce Aaron getting closer to Charlie Wirtz now, so that's a gap now that's starting to come down. He's got to within a second, so it's now around 9/10 for Bryce Aaron to chase. So take a look at Noel Leon rumbling over the curbs, and he's been working hard, of course, with his team to try and help, certainly not only grant him further time and find that delta in the corners, but it's also trying to avoid those mistakes, isn't it, Chris? Because obviously, you know, we saw track limits being an impetus in qualifying, trying not to extend. You know, Noel Leon admitted a few times during practice to his team that he had a bit of work to do in order to really sort of find that pace, that deep-rooted pace that he knew he had, but at the same time didn't want to go too far and land himself in trouble. Yeah,
and well, he had his best lap time deleted, did Noel Leon, in qualifying. It would have been below the Euroformula lap record. Alas, the second best time he did was still good enough for pole, but ever the perfectionists at Motor Park, they gave him a bit of a word about that, saying, can't be making mistakes like that. I know, you know, he's on pole anyway, but you need to take the lessons learnt from that regardless, because in another day, that could have been very costly.
Yeah, could well have been. And we've still got, at this point, 15 laps to go. As they now head down now in towards Lochgold again, turn 4. Very well, the elevation certainly can be a tricky thing to manage here at Red Bull Ring, and certainly where it comes to some of the corners, turn 4 being one of them. And you've got the double left-handers heading through Roche and Verth Curve. Of course, we've had many a talented driver perform here at Red Bull Ring in the past. Certainly the circuit in itself has graced us with many great talents. Of course, last season's Euroformula Open champion Oliver Goethe, who has since taken part for Trident in Formula 3. Of course, he won the first race last season. Vlad Lomko taking race 2, Francesco Simonazzi famously taking the race 3 victory in Parc Ferme. We all saw the celebration that he had after that race too. And of course, we saw Jack Crawford win twice out of 3 races last year, with Nazim Azman taking the second race win, and Yi Yifei taking both wins back in 2020, Marino Sato taking both the year before that, and then Colton Herta taking the 2 wins the year prior, with Leonardo Polcini, who we all know is the International GT Open champion from last season. He won it in race 1 back in 2015 with Victor Baptiste in 2015 in race 2.
And that's such a list that you've just reeled off there. I mean, Jack Crawford, obviously off in F2 at the moment. Yifei Ye's in Fuji this weekend for the WEC race there, driving with the Jota Porsche in hypercar. Olli Goethe obviously doing a fine job in F3 at the moment as well. Of course, where Simonazzi was during the summer break as well, and Dufek, as you mentioned earlier, and they've been kept real busy. And now the gold drivers here are about to get disrupted by Jakob Bergmeister going into turn 4. Bergmeister easy swap with his blue helmet in that Motorpark car, but he's currently looking at the back of Vladimir Netashil, who has been a consistent force in this championship.
Netashil's dipping into the gravel on the outset, upset the rear. He did well to keep the car on the track, and in fact I think Jakob Bergmeister tried some evasive action, did not want to tempt himself too far forward at risk of perhaps being collected by Netashil as they come down into Jochen Curve yet again. Another right-hander to take through towards Red Bull Mobile Curve, but a nervy moment for the effective racing driver as they head through that final bend now and down the long straight. Bergmeister looking to lift himself off the bottom. Netashil chasing the Gold Cup trophy glory, but Brajnik has extended his advantage ahead by 1.5 seconds to that of Netashil in behind as they come through turn 1. Here's a replay of the moment, and just got his feet too deep into that, Chris.
Yeah, good recovery, very nicely done. Vladimir Netashil, very experienced driver at 41 years of age. Actually, Austrian F3 Cup champion, so he probably knows this track quite well, I'd have thought, but a little wide out of turn 3 there, and that's going to give Bergmeister a run, the 4th generational talent from the Bergmeister family, trying to make a mark in junior single-seater racing at the moment. Looking to the outside here, we'll have to go the long way around, can't quite do it.
Yeah, Netashil defending the move there to the outside, so Bergmeister did have a little look down the in, and that would then become the outside heading into Roche Curve as they head through towards the next left, but still Netashil able to maintain that advantage, and something we've rarely seen from Vladimir Netashil, so maybe that Austrian F3 form is coming into fruition here at this point, so credit to him for that as they head down now into the latter stages of this lap. Still 12 to go as they make their way down now into the in-swinger at Jochen Bend. Bergmeister still having to wait for his opportunity. He's had opportunity, but Netashil has certainly done well to marshal off any escape, and of course he's the sole runner using the HWA engine as well, the rest using Spice, and therefore, you know, he's one man against the rest essentially in this charge, but doing a great job here against Bergmeister.
Yes, it is essentially a spec series, but you do have a choice of engine between the HWA and the Spice, and the majority of the runners choosing to go for the Spice engine. Although, that being said, 6 of the cars are run by the Motorpark team, and they'd all run the same engine, so there could well be more variety if we do get some more teams on the grid for next season, which we're very hopeful for. But now look at that, Noel Leon 2.8 clear in the lead. Last warning going out to Francesco Simonazzi, so he's very much on the verge of picking up a penalty for track limits once again today, which he certainly would not want.
No, not at all. Heading through now towards the Roche and Verth curves again. And they'll dance again through yet another left-hander before they're meeting the Jochenring curve. As we now see the pan pictures to the front this time, Noel Leon looking set to take another race win should he be able to hold on to his positioning up at the front end of the field, and putting himself into a good position to be marketable for an F3 seat next season. And you know, Oliver Goethe did it only 12 months ago, taking the title, was on a quest in fact to try and break Felipe Drugovic's all-time win record in this championship last year with 17 race wins that he managed to procure in his run to the title, and has since now been procured by Aston Martin as the reserve driver after winning the F2 championship. And that record is still yet to be beaten.
And talk of him getting an a Formula E seat for next season as well, which would be quite nice to see him on the grid. Of course, you know, plenty of incredible talent that's come up through this championship. Alex Palou, of course, just won his second IndyCar title in dominant fashion as well. Now this looks like it could be the moment for Bergmeister here to get himself up into 8th place, although gets his nose chopped off a little bit. Wasn't much space there on the outside, and Bergmeister has to settle in 9th once again. But yeah, Palou, it's only like the 3rd or 4th time in history this championship's been won before the last round, doing an incredible job out there. And of course, Josh Mason, who's been out in Euroformula Open earlier this year, making his F2 debut and running out to the end of the season, actually. He's done the last few rounds there. And we were talking about this earlier, Liam Lawson.
And not only that, Yuki Tsunoda as well, who was also a former Euroformula Open driver. So essentially providing the drivers for the AlphaTauri team this season.
Yes.
So
were they teammates in Euroformula? I can't quite remember.
No, but
they have been teammates before.
They were very competitive. Liam Lawson was, of course, a runner-up his season in Euroformula, and obviously has since proved his skills worthy of doing well in the likes of the Super Formula Championship, was superb in F2, and of course since doing some great things now in Formula 1 in his initial stint, hasn't been in the car long whatsoever, and has already managed to cultivate some positive performances for the AlphaTauri team. So a very, very top graduate to come through the ranks in the Euroformula Open Championship, and we've seen so many with the use of the Dallara chassis that we have on offer, the 320 being utilised right now as we speak. And obviously we've alluded to the fact that the likes of Simonazzi has since gone on to race in Formula 3 as well, as we now see some side-by-side action yet again. And still seeing further up, I'm just watching as Netteschel once again defending massively against that of Jakob Bergmeister. This has been a battle that has been ongoing, but I've been very impressed here with Netteschel. He's showing certainly what he's capable of, having a proper battle against this young man.
Yes, yeah, absolutely is. I've just looked out, they were teammates. Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson at Motor Park the year they were in Euroformula 2019.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be, yeah, you couldn't write it, could you? Of course, while Netteschel is concentrating a lot on Bergmeister behind him, Paolo Brajnik's kind of walking away with the gold class win in 7th place there. And Paolo Brajnik's got one of the most interesting backgrounds of any driver on this grid, really, having won multiple titles in superbikes, 2012 Italian Super Twin champion, European Superbike champion in 2014 as well, and made the switch over to 4 wheels, where he won or competed in the Central European F3 Championship and the F2000 Italian Trophy as well, which is quite a niche one, if you know.
Little error from Netteschel coming out of turn 3, which could open the door here for Bergmeister, who's well in the aero. Netteschel trying to cover off the inside, and wow, movement certainly heading in, and I think there might have been some debris picked up there as well as they head through Slosh Gold. Netteschel really not keen to let this position go. They're fighting over this relentlessly, and Bergmeister, no doubt, the young man that he is, obviously on the rise, trying to help nurture his own career here at this point, and obviously a young man at this point in this championship, and being held back by the likes of Vladimir Netteschel, who's, got to say, defended very stoically here.
Doing a great job. Bergmeister, just 17 years of age, so it's very much a battle of the generations here with 8 laps to go. But yeah, 4th generation with his father, Tim, a very successful driver. His uncle Jorg, you've probably heard of as a Porsche Works driver for many years. His grandfather Willie, trained a young Michael Schumacher at his VW workshop in the late 80s, and he was a touring car champion himself as well. And then his great-granddad was also a champion in some form of racing, probably a touring car championship, I think. So it runs in the family, let's put it that way.
Certainly does. We get a lot of racing families here. Of course, Charlie Wirtz himself, being the son of Alexandra Wirtz, who I can remember watching as a kid in Formula One when he raced at Benetton all those years ago, teammating alongside the likes of Jenson Button back then, which was absolutely extraordinary. But
two-time Le Mans winner as well.
Absolutely, and very rich credentials in the Wirtz family, and Charlie Wirtz will be hoping that he can deliver the same accolades in his own right as well. Here, of course, in the Euroformula Open, currently sat in that 5th place and trying to chase after that of Francesco Simonazzi, but still at the sharp end right now. We've got Noel Leon leading the way, and this man, Cian Shields, currently sat in 2nd as he looks to try and reduce the deficit. 5.6, though, the gap has gone out. Noel Leon just confirming what a young star he really is, and definitely a future talent to watch out for in Formula 3. Of course, didn't have the best of seasons in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, but since stepping in at Motor Park, who have a great record at trying to bring young drivers back to the best of their ability, I think they've really done a cracking job with this young man.
There is a point to be made. People look at the face of results and think that's everything to tell. When the reality is there is so much more to the story, and suddenly if a driver isn't competing, then it must be the driver's fault, especially in junior single-seater racing, where they are largely spec series, but that just isn't quite the case. As you see, Simonazzi flamboyant as ever behind the wheel of his BVM Racing car. But yeah, to your point, George, Motorpark have absolutely got the best out of him, and there's no denying that this young driver's got raw talent. You don't win 2 F4 titles without being somewhat talented, and he managed to win the US F4 title during the US Grand Prix weekend, and I'm sure that was an absolutely stellar moment for him. As now Bergmeister's got his man finally, and he must have just done that into turn 4, up into 8th place now for young Bergmeister. But yeah, no, I would not be at all surprised to see Noel Leon moving up to FIF3 next year and doing a really good job if he found the right seat.
It's essentially the same ingredients to what we saw placed into Oliver Goethe. This is the replay of Jakob Bergmeister. He hung around the outside. Now, he's tried this a couple of times, but this time it paid off for him. Netterschil giving the respectful room as well as they came together, heading out of turn 4. Credit to Netterschil. He gave it his best. Just could not keep him behind for that much longer. Charlie Wirtz getting closer to the back of Francesco Simonazzi as they head down now in towards turn 4. And the Austrian here on home turf, looking to try and lift himself higher and higher, but first he needs to get past the charismatic Italian who took his first race in Euroformula at this very track last year.
Charlie Wirtz, another example of that, where he's won titles for UAE and Formula Regional Oceania, as we mentioned, and come over to Europe and has struggled somewhat. Of course, there was the issue, he had a laryngitis earlier in the year and had to miss the Spa round of the Formula Regional European Championship, which didn't help matters, but has been struggling in that championship. And it's all about environment, I think. It's all about getting it in the right place. I mean, Alex Albon's probably a clear case of that in Formula 1, where leaving Red Bull and going to Williams, and suddenly he's performing exceptionally well. And it's the same with these young drivers as well.
Yeah, it takes nurturing, and obviously talent, essentially at this age, that if it's focused, it can be so certainly poignant at this stage. And given the fact that Wirtz does have a rich catalogue of successes behind him already, certainly his ability can't be questioned as a young driver. Currently in 5th place, still chasing after that of Francesco Simonazzi. I'm sure he won't hesitate to try and launch an attack as they make their way down through towards the next right-hander. We have a replay here again. Simonazzi showing his stuff still.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, just on Wirtz, I'm sure he is fueled by the comments from one Dr. Helmut Marko. I know a lot of his comments have been in the news lately, but there was one about him saying there's no good Austrian talent coming up through the order, and I think Charlie and particularly Father Alex were not too impressed by said comments, and they'll be able to prove him wrong.
Well, greater ambition to prove him wrong. Certainly, Charlie Wirtz has certainly got plenty of ability. Let's see if he can harness it here in the Euroformula Open.
That being said, I know he races under an Austrian license, but he was born and lives in Monaco, so... but that's because that's where his dad lives now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, it's a haven for many great Formula One drivers, and just being in that environment alone must give Charlie Wirtz a lot of inspiration as a young talent. Essentially, that's why these youngsters get into single-seater racing or just motorsport in general. It's certainly a very captivating sport that we love time and time again, and certainly here in the Euroformula Open it is no different as the cars now start to draw closer and closer together. Incidentally, Simonazzi started to charge here at Joshua Dufek. The gap between those two now only at 1.3, so we could have a monumental charge for third place here. So we've still got over 4 laps to go.
Yeah, the lead gap 7.2 seconds, but closing up for third, as you mentioned there, George, Joshua Dufek just in front of Francesco Simonazzi there, and bringing Charlie Wirtz with him. 3.5 laps to go. And yeah, final spot on the podium in this first race of the weekend for the Euroformula Open Championship. Not settled just yet. No,
still a small matter of 4 laps to go. And 2 races to be had in a reverse environment. Of course, remember, folks, we've got the reverse results of this race, and not to mention that of the qualifying that we had earlier on this morning. So sit tight. It should be very interesting indeed. Simonazzi, though, regardless, is going to have a lot of work to do as a result of both, but certainly marching a charge in this race will help. You know, see them make their way through the final corner once again and head down towards turn 1 still, this time with just over 3 laps still to go, as we now witness the car of Joshua Dufek making his way up towards turn 1. As I said before, multi-time podium sitter in the World of Formula Regional European Championship. If he stays like this, he'll be a podium sitter in Euroformula as well, but Francesco Simonazzi is going to do his best to stop that from happening and also bring Charlie Wirtz into the fight as well, as they now charge up through towards turn 3. They are getting closer and closer here to Cian Shields, who hasn't really lost that of Dufek either, but obviously we're coming down to the sensitive part of the race here at this point, and this is where the big questions start getting answered here, Chris.
Certainly do. Well, second place not that far up at the road, is it? It's 2 seconds to Cian Shields. And that has been closing up sort of slightly. 10th here, 10th there. But probably nothing doing in these last few moments. This is Joshua Dufek leading that battle for third. Wirtz getting that was a little bit more sideways, wasn't it? Curve there for Wirtz.
Coming through now the latter sector. With 3 laps to go. It's still Noel Leon consolidating that lead and has done so brilliantly. But the gap still coming down here between Dufek and Shields to a certain degree. 2.1 seconds at the interval. Just look at that, Wirtz as well, reining in Francesco Simonazzi. The gaps are certainly shrinking, obviously benefiting off the back of the aero, but Simonazzi at the same time is bringing them both closer to Dufek with this battle for P3 that still could yet be in the offing. As we now rejoin Noel Leon up at the front end of the grid, a multi-time race winner in certain series as well. Very versatile.
Leaf clover on the front of his car. So
was lucky.
Yes, it is. Well, it's worked out well for him so far.
Absolutely. Everyone needs a little bit of luck from time to time. Noel Leon making his way through turn 1. And for the final time, he'll do that in race 1 as well. Still 2 races to come, though, throughout this weekend. And certainly starters who need to go on, that is the mission for the Mexican. Has certainly been magnificent throughout the complex running of this series, and certainly this season we've had obviously tyre companies come in like Hankook, but due to a fire they sustained, switching to Pirelli, and these are the missions that these drivers have had to deal with, and now donning the Pirelli rubber with Hankook no longer supplying, it does mean that they have to once again get used to this, and given the fact that Noel Leon has come into this car and it's almost had a whole change of perception. Of course, we saw a very promising start to his season where he went and took victory for the first time at Portimao. He followed it up with a pole and victory at Spa. Of course, since then, podiums in race 2 and 3, took victory at Hungaroring as well, as he now heads up towards the line. He'll take another victory. It's magnificent. The Mexican, Noel Leon, he takes victory here in race 1 at Red Bull Ring. And now he's looking to now further his quest for the championship. He's one step closer, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Just perfect, dominant performance. Once again, we expect excellence from Noel Leon these days, and that is, yeah, 4th win of the season for the young Mexican. Kian Shields coming home in 2nd place there, and that is a 6th podium of the season, I believe, or a 5th, I should say. And Joshua Dufek on the podium in his first outing in Euroformula Open.
Yeah, a special performance once again from Noel Leon, dominant as ever, and certainly underlining his credentials as champion, but still a fair ways to go. Plenty of races still to come as well. That's race 1 ticked, 2 more to go here at Red Bull Ring. Let's take you through the results, folks. The Mexican Noel Leon takes victory here, and nearly 8 seconds clear of Kian Shields in 2nd, who takes yet another podium. Joshua Dufek, first start, first podium for the Swiss driver, with Francesco Simonazzi in 4th as well for BVM, rising right from the bottom. Charlie Wirtz in 5th, Bryce Aaron in 6th, Jakob Bergmeister managing to get past Vladimir Netschel and Paolo Brajnik, who finish 8th and 9th, with Brajnik leading the Gold Trophy Cup charge. And here is the Drivers' Championship, and look at what it's done. You can see there, 36 points now separating Bryce Aaron and Noel Leon at the top of the championship. 228 points to boot, with Kian Shields in 3rd, Simonazzi in 4th, Juju Noda in 5th, with Jakob Bergmeister 6th, Josh Mason 7th, Tim Tramnitz 8th, and so truly there in 9th as well. But coming into Parc Ferme, no doubt there'll be a smile on his face. A charismatic figure, a young man with talent, certainly someone we'd expect to see climbing team.
And vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. They work together so well. Joshua Dufek, I think, will be pleased getting himself underway with a podium. Kian Shields will be thrilled as well, getting the jump that he required. And yeah, Noel immediately going for the water, and I don't blame him. It's very hot out there. It's hot, it's hot in the commentary box as well.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to someone about the aircon in here, because it doesn't seem to be working, and it's telling us here that the air temperature is only 26 degrees. I'm not buying that for a second.
It's a very warm day here at Spielberg, but there we have it. They'll debrief now shortly. But a stellar showing indeed from Noel Leon, and Motor Park rates him very highly indeed, and obviously talks you know, of him being like the next Oliver Goethe from last season, and you wouldn't be too far wrong with that assessment.
Nah, not gonna let him hit. No.
Well, a fantastic battle certainly towards the end, but bringing it home. Joshua Dufek coming home in 3rd place, the Swiss driver getting a notch on his lapel here at the Euroformula Open Championship. Kian Shields coming home in 2nd, the Brit achieving some very, very decent points going towards his cause, but they had no answer for the magnificent Mexican. It's Noel Leon. He's your race winner, and he'll be standing by with Alfredo Filipponi, I'm sure.
Noel Leon, you win race 1 at Red Bull, like you said this morning, everything according to the plan?
Yeah, for sure. It was a nice race from the beginning to the end. Amazing pace we have the whole weekend so far. So, of course, tomorrow we'll start P6 both races, but I think we have a mega car, mega race pace, so for sure we'll be on the podium.
The good thing this race, of course, is that you increase the lead in the championship quite significant.
Yeah, of course, that was the main point of this race, to especially if we didn't have the pace to win, just score the most points that we can have, but lucky we have a nice car.
Well done. Vamos.
Yeah, they will speak highly about the cars. We're going to take you through the highlights as well, folks, after that race that would no doubt consolidate Noel Leon's charge at the top of the championship. The lights went out, we put pedal to the metal and hit go, 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 go for the first time in the Austria weekend. And certainly Noel Leon got a very, very good jump, though. Bryce Aaron missed out at the very start, as did Charlie Wirtz. He had a very slow getaway. Jakob Bergmeister also had a difficult start too, and had to recover in his own right as well. They all came together, though, heading out through towards turn 3. Francesco Simonazzi moving himself past Paolo Brajnik, who he himself in the hunt for the Gold Trophy Award. Charlie Wirtz also came under some pressure from Paolo Brajnik himself, almost tried to act like a great wall, essentially, Brajnik, but was unable to stop the onslaught as drivers cruised past him as time went on. We saw another moment as well for Netteschel as he defended against that of Jakob Bergmeister. Coming through Rochenwerth curve, just dipping into the gravel trap, caused him to upset his race. But eventually Bergmeister would get the move done. Looking for that really dedicated charge around the outside through Slosh Gold. He managed to convert that into a place gain for himself as well. But no one could stop Noel Leon, who would end up crossing the line and taking the checkered flag for yet another win to add to his accolade and further points towards his championship charge. And well,
I love their relationship, so it's fantastic.
Well, it takes us to the podium, and certainly a terrific performance there from Joshua Dufek, who currently stands alone at the moment on the podium and taking third place. I'm sure he'd be pleased with that. Nice way to start, and obviously would like to get his car to the front end. Definitely has the potential to do just that. On paper, in fact, one of the best drivers on the grid. Noel Leon now takes to the top step, leading the championship, and stretches his authority up at the top after that performance. And then in second place, joining him, Cian Shields, another stellar showing for the young Brit. And Kai, of course, representing here at Team Motor Park, who looks after Noel and does a fantastic job with him as well. Great team, and they've certainly delivered many a great result. But now we'll have the Mexican national anthem. Well, Noel Leon delivering again, and he'll look to try and put his best feet forward. Obviously, plenty more to come for the young man, but yet another victory going his way. And keep your eyes peeled on him. He took one win at Portimao, took a win in the fastest lap at Spa-Francorchamps as well. A win in the fastest lap at Hungaroring. Has no problem leading from the front. As soon as he gets in front, very difficult to topple. Trophy presentation given out, and the P1 trophy going to Noel Leon, P2 to Cian Shields, P3 to Joshua Dufek. And Kai celebrates as well, the Motor Park team getting their hands on a trophy of their own. And very good performance from them too.
And finally, the Gold Cup for the gentleman, Paolo Brajnik with
Paolo Brajnik taking the Gold Cup trophy to boot.
With all the trophies.
Yes, terrific performance. They're all trying to clamber onto the P1 tower at this point. Wonderful. But folks, a tremendous race. We'll look forward to seeing you back again tomorrow when we go racing for race 2 and race 3. Take care. Goodbye.